In the early hours of the 16th of April 1922, London's bustling West End was gripped by a chilling mystery that would become an enduring urban legend. And it was born from a series of bizarre street attacks that left the city questioning the boundaries between reality and the supernatural. (1920s London). The First World War was over, and for the aristocracy and wealthier classes, life had never been better. Nightclubs, jazz clubs and cocktail bars flourished in the city. And in London, the West End was where it was all happening. Coventry Street was a thoroughfare connecting Leicester Square with Piccadilly Circus, and was right in the middle of it all. It was 6 a.m, and one of the quietest times of the day in this part of town. Dawn was still to arrive, and the streets were dark and empty now that the nightclubs were asleep. A man on his way to work was taking his well-practiced route to the office. It was always an early start for him. Such was the life of a clerk. He turned into a quiet alley just off Coventry Street. A few strides in, and suddenly something grabbed him. No time to react. Sharp pain in his neck, and the sensation of blood draining from his body. His head swirling, and only dark shadows of the street in his view. And then nothing. A high white ceiling gradually appeared into view. Fuzzy-headed and disoriented, the clerk looked around. Where was he? He was lying in a hospital bed. What had happened? A nurse, noticing he was awake, walked to his bedside, telling him that he'd been recently brought in unconscious, and that he was in Charing Cross Hospital. A doctor soon came over and had a chat. He was perplexed. He explained that they'd found a wound on his neck, and from what they could make out, the wound had been made by something tubular and sharp, almost like something had been stabbed into his neck. The clerk was shocked, insisting that no one had been near him at the time of the attack. It was as if whoever or whatever had attacked him had just materialized out of the shadows. There were no words to explain this. And what was really bizarre was that he'd been found unconscious with all his belongings. There'd been no theft, nothing stolen from him. Yes, very, very odd. And things were about to get a little bit stranger. Just a couple of hours later, another man was admitted to the same hospital, again unconscious, and again displaying the same injuries to his neck. On waking, he also claimed that he'd been attacked by an unseen assailant in the very same spot just off Coventry Street. There was no doubt a pattern was beginning to emerge, and the doctors knew local police involvement was certainly required. And later that same evening, a third man was admitted to the hospital, an identical experience. He'd been attacked at the very same spot and was exhibiting the very same injuries on his neck. The hospital staff were baffled. They'd never seen anything like this before, and the police were now involved. But of course, widespread speculation soon followed. The press quickly seized upon the story, with newspapers like the Daily Mail reporting on the mysterious attacks. A reporter, perhaps with a touch of sarcasm, asked a police spokesman if a vampire could be responsible. The officer, caught off guard, nervously replied, "Oh, that's all," quickly shutting down that line of questioning. Yet this only fueled public imagination and fear, and theories and speculation continued in an attempt to explain the events. Public concern was growing, and of course from this, gossip thrives. Some suggested that the victims had been attacked by a giant bat-like creature, which had been sighted near West Drayton Church earlier that year. This all stemmed from a claim made by a West Drayton local, who declared that he'd seen the very same bat 25 years earlier, and that it was linked to a century-old legend of a vampire who had murdered a woman in Harmondsworth in the 1890s. Of course, this was, I suppose, quite uncanny in terms of its connection, but nonetheless, it was nothing but far-fetched speculation. Other rumours began to swirl that the police had enlisted a vampire hunter, no less, to track down and eliminate the creature.
Vampires, human vampires, beings who exist on the blood of other humans.
It was suggested that the vampire hunter had succeeded, staking the vampire's heart and burying it in Highgate Cemetery. But of course, no official confirmation of such actions was reported. But then again, it's highly unlikely that the Metropolitan Police would have gone public on something like that anyway, right? Following this strange series of attacks, no further incidents were reported, and within a bustling metropolis like London, where street crime happened on a daily basis, the events of April the 16th, 1922 soon faded into London's rich tapestry of folklore, becoming a cautionary tale of the unknown lurking in the shadows of the city. Today, Coventry Street continues to bustle with activity, its dark history lingering in the whispers of those who remember the legend of the vampire that once haunted its alleys. And it's since become a popular tourist stop for those interested in the darker, more supernatural side of London. I mean, looking back, the most likely theory behind this incident is that the victims were attacked by someone who had been loitering in the area. In other words, it was just a random spate of assaults created by opportunity and circumstance. And if not that, perhaps it was a targeted attack, perhaps by some former co-worker, as all three victims were working in the Coventry Street area. So perhaps that was a line of questioning maybe the police didn't go down at the time. Whatever the reason, there's still one specific detail that makes this mystery quite uniquely perplexing. And that's the method of the attack. Neck puncture wounds. What's that all about? Neck puncture wounds. I mean, it's not necessarily the usual MO of a street crime mugging. Why weren't the victims just clobbered over the head by the assailant, but puncture marks in the neck? And also, how were the victims so easily subdued? I mean, they had no chance to run for it. There was no struggle. They quite literally were incapacitated and laid unconscious, out for the count. That's kind of odd. Whether a series of bizarre assaults, a case of mass hysteria, or something more otherworldly, the legend endures, and ultimately the perpetrator was never caught. The Coventry Street vampire attacks remain one of London's most intriguing unsolved mysteries, and has always sort of blurred the line between the supernatural and reality.